Hi, everybody. My name is Shaman,
I'm Natalia.
and we are going to talk about elder abuse today. The life stage that we are presenting on is death and dying in late adulthood. So, regarding that, we are going to take a closer look on elder abuse in regards to their symptoms, their signs, their variables, who are the victims, some of the locations, resources, and so forth. So to start off, we want to give you an explanation of what we believe is elder abuse. It is the negligent act by a caregiver or any other individual that causes or risk to a vulnerable adult over the age of 60.
Right. The types of abuse that occur within elder abuse is physical, which is inflicting pain, such as especially inflicting physical pain, such as bruising, causing intentional bruising, or harmful injuries to the senior. Sexual will be unwanted sexual advances, sexual harassment, or physical encounters that the senior may not want. Will be considered failure to provide necessities for basic life, like food, withholding medication, withholding going to the doctors and things like that. That will be considered neglect. Exploitation will be the illegal misuse, concealment of funds, property, and assets for the benefit of the other person. Another form of abuse is abandonment, where the desertion of a vulnerable adult or elder by a caregiver or any of responsibility. So a person leaving like an elder adult in the home alone without proper supervision, like a person with Alzheimer's who can't properly. So that will be considered abandonment when that person leaves them for a period of a day or hours or so without getting their basic needs um, provided for. Another form of neglect will be self-neglect, where the elder is not taking medication, refusing to take medication for like cancers, diabetes, anything that's detrimental that can impact the health of the senior. Also, another form of self-neglect is not cleaning, not bathing, having issue with hoarding, things that impact the elder's ability to live.
Some of the signs and symptoms that we noticed is it all varies between the actual types in itself. So regarding physical abuse, there's going to be some kind of level of mistreatment in regards to different injuries on their body, bruises, abrasions, things that are not supposed to be there, and ones that cannot be explained in layman's terms. There's exploitation, which is their changes in financial situations. Their money it's going somewhere and they don't know where, and etc. With neglect and being neglect and being not able to provide for them on a specific basis, there can be experiencing weight loss, poor hygiene, and etc. There's also power and control, where the elder is so dependent on the caregiver, they are not fazed by the threats, by the belittling, by the harassment, and other types of power and control that the caregiver has on the person. So those are the signs and the symptoms that we figured out. And considering that the signs and symptoms and the types go to a specific set of victims, you will be surprised to know that there are a lot of different older adults in various areas. So some of the victims that we thought of was isolated seniors in their home where they are alone and not being taken care of. There are older adults without family connection, so they don't have that kinship and maybe don't even have the proper environment to have somebody to come and take care of them. There's also seniors with physical and neurological disabilities. There's seniors who are placed in nursing and assisted living facilities. And there's older adults who are dependent on caregivers, which we connected to neglect earlier.
We're going to go theoretical perspectives and implications of abuse, certain theories that we feel as though which will apply to elder abuse. And one of the important theoretical approach that we thought of was Kubler-Ross's theory of death and dying, which is a well-known approach to that clients experience, and the with Kubler-Ross thought of this, and she feels as though that other go through different processes in life that might not necessarily be they're going through the death process, but they could be experiencing major loss. And some of the major loss could be examples of losing connections to family and community, losing finances, and just pretty much losing a sense of identity and a sense of independence if they may have to go to a nursing home, and what they may not feel like they want to do. So they're dealing with those type of behaviors and types of thoughts and feelings that they feel like they are major to them, and that they don't know how to deal with. So in understanding the Kubler-Ross theory of death and dying, I wanted to apply a story or a case that I had as a protective service worker. To make it more relatable, I had a case as a protective service worker where I had to investigate financial exploitation of an 86-year-old female who presented at a hospital for she presented for falling, and then a further assessment determined that she was not being properly cared for by her daughter. Once the hospital made a determination to contact protective services, and I was the assigned investigator to determine if there was any indication of abuse or neglect. Once I was while I'm completing my investigation, it was determined that there could be possible signs of abuse and neglect. To further investigate, I had to get my consumer consent that will allow me to investigate whether she's being properly cared for, like going to medical appointments, whether her finances are being cared for as far as bills are being paid, as far as her finances are being basically used for her benefit. The outcome of the case did indicate that there was exploitation. She was in the hospital, and during the course of her being in the hospital, it was attempts were made when it was time for this consumer to be discharged from the hospital, attempts were made to the daughter for the consumer to be ready to go home. Those attempts went pretty much, the daughter didn't want to respond to the social workers and didn't want to respond to anyone trying to let them know that the mom is ready to come home. So in those attempts, a mail was sent to the daughter. I made personal attempts to the home, and to no avail. I couldn't get in contact with the daughter. So decisions had to be made. A lot of involuntary decisions had to be made, which was for her to transition from the hospital to the nursing home for safety, because we couldn't, the hospital couldn't, send her home without someone being properly there to care for her. So while she's in the nursing home, I was able, with her consent, to get her financial documents, and I was able to get her financial documents through a consultant that we had at PCA, which is called a financial exploitation specialist. She was able to analyze a year's worth of statements to determine her statements was indicative of financial exploitation. An example was $200,000 was taken from her. Her house was sold. The burial account was cashed in, and all of that came from a power of attorney that was not quite effective, because it came when the consumer in the past was incapacitated when she had to go through surgery. So she was given a temporary medical power of attorney while she was in surgery, and once that was done, the power of attorney had expired. So during that time, a lot of transactions conspired while she was the legal power of attorney was not in effect. So during the course of that, the financial exploitation specialist advised me to take the statements to the consumer and just go over with them. So once I went over with them, she confirmed that none of the transactions were hers, and she was pretty much, didn't know what to do. So in order to to tune in into Kiva Ross's theory of death and dying, I want to apply the stages that she actually went through as I was working this case. So to dive into denial, initially she didn't want to believe that her daughter did this. She loved and cared for her daughter. She had a house of her own, and she didn't believe that it was gone. So she was pretty much, in a state of shock and didn't know what to do. Once she realized that it was her daughter, she got into a state of, she went to the state of anger, the stage of anger where she was very emotional at the fact that this house that her husband brought together is no longer there for her to go home to. The burial account that her and her husband set up is no longer there. She don't know what to do as far as how her last rites would be fulfilled. From there, the next stage was bargaining. An example of that was she felt as though that she was ready to go home. She was making statements that to the social worker and the doctors, I want to go home. I don't want to be in this nursing home no more. I feel better. There's nothing wrong with me. I can walk, when in fact that she could not walk. Her mobility was very severely impacted, and the doctors recommended that she not go home, knowing that she had nowhere to go to. Once that was kind of pretty much indicated, she went through a state of depression where she felt very hopeless, that she would never leave the nursing home and that she would never return home. And she developed like something called sepsis when you're in a nursing home or hospital for so long that you develop certain, medical disorders while you're in the hospital and in the nursing home for so long. So the outcome of the case was that we was able to speak to her and ask her that her next steps, and it would be her decision whether she wanted to prosecute her daughter for everything that was taken from her. So she consented to wanting to prosecute and bring charges to her daughter. So what I did was I made a referral to the SVU and to the elder task force within the Philadelphia Police Department, and they was able to have an officer to come to her, make a statement, help her get the final, help her start stages of the criminal investigation against her finances in order to try to recover and reduce the risk that's going on with her finances. So upon that, charges were brought up to her. The daughter would have to pay back restitution to the mom, and the mother, over a period of time, after getting the effective level of care that she always, kind of pretty much wanted, and from her daughter, she found it from the nursing home. So she kind of got accustomed to being fully cared for, engaging in activities, engaging with her peers and things of that nature. She got into a sense of peace, which is the final stage of death and dying, which is acceptance, where she kind of recognized that this is where she wants to be, and she understands that nursing homes is not as bad as she thought it was. So she's able to get around, with a wheelchair, but she's still able to actively engage in her environment. So once she found out that some of her money can be set up in a trust to ensure that she has the proper burial again, and that she has all of her finances are safe. So once that also happened, a guardian was put in place to protect her assets while she's alive, and to ensure that the daughter is putting money aside towards the estate, and to ensure that her nursing home stay is being paid for, and that none of her money is being taken advantage anymore. Another important theoretical theory that we wanted to talk about was the medical model. And according to our textbooks, the disease model maintains that there is a clear and identifiable relationship between disease and people's functioning behaviors and problems. So I kind of made that applicable in my story about my consumer, the case I had to work, where she was through a thorough assessment. We noticed that she initially came in for a fall, and through the fall, we was able to determine it was issues that were there, and the doctor was able to make a determination, the social worker and the doctor make a determination, and we have to report this abuse to higher authorities and have someone out there to help her. So also, seniors that are being abused present with indicators of severe depression, pressure also, malnutrition, dehydration, and physical bruising and scarring. An assessment with a physician and social worker can help to pinpoint and diagnose these presenting symptoms that impact the health and well-being of the older adult to determine the types of intervention that will help to eliminate or alleviate medical issues and concerns.
Another perspective that we wanted to discuss about elder abuse in connection to Kubler-Ross's theory of death and dying and the medical model was the different milestones that late adulthood individuals go through. So even with the physical aspect and the cognitive aspect, there are different things to look for, such as weight loss. They are becoming more fragile, where they are losing muscle mass and they are declining in bone. There may be increased occurrences of diseases such as just physical pain or arthritis. There can be increased appearances of wrinkles, of gray hair, of age spots, so forth. There can also be different variations in regard to dental and vision and hearing problems. Each one of these connect with their biological, physical aspects, because there are changes in their dental issues, there are changes in their vision. It may be harder for them to see, and there is a decline when it comes to their hearing. Another area is their central nervous system functioning, because they may not be able to react the way that they were able to react in a younger age. Their eye-hand coordination may vary, and there's other functioning aspects that do decrease. We talked about the physical part of it, but there's also cognitive as well too. As they grow older, there is a possibility that they are going to have more memory loss, where they are unable to emotionally and mentally function as they used to, and they may even have increased occurrences of symptoms of dementia, Alzheimer's, and any other medical area that they may be inclined to experience. Another theoretical perspective that we wanted to discuss was the Peck's theory of ego integrity. In regards to late adulthood, the definition that we saw was that it is the emotional and social development that focuses on attaining ego integrity and improving the well-being. So there are 3 specific tasks that was mentioned in the text. So one is ego differentiation versus work and role preoccupation. So this is where in the life of late adulthoods, it is to affirm self-worth through family and friendships, relationships, and community, instead of looking at one's career and physical abilities. Because when you think about it, as they grow older, they are retiring, their life is changing. And even with the physical abilities, as we just talked about, they are losing bone mass, they are losing muscle, and etc. The next one, number 2, is body transcendence versus body preoccupation. It is to emphasize rewards of cognitive, emotional, and social powers and focus on enjoying life instead of their aches and their pains. Number 3 is ego transcendence versus ego preoccupation. It is to face the reality of death by focusing on not the negative aspect of it, but to actually focus on the positive side, where they are gratifying life for younger generations and even themselves, where they're looking at the more positive experiences, the milestones that they have encountered and accomplished. So it's to make more of a meaningful experience than anything else.
We also thought what was important in understanding elder abuse and was to talk about the various interventions that could help after recognizing signs and symptoms of elder abuse. So one of the things that we talked about was calling adult protective services. As social workers and people within the field, we are mandated reporters, meaning that if we witness or were told any indication of abuse, we are to call Adult Protective Services. So each state has their own Adult Protective Services. There are phone numbers that people can call 24 hours a day to report suspicion of abuse, neglect, exploitation, and abandonment. Another way to intervene with elder abuse is through a medical um, assessment with a doctor, a hospital, anything like that that can, determine whether a person is being abused. And also a psychological evaluation done by a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist that will, do an extensive assessment to determine whether a person is able to manage their own finances, whether they have the ability to manage finances, also with managing their well-being if they're having any difficulties with accomplishing that. And some of that can be determined whether the person has cognitive defects or physical disabilities that will impact them from providing care for themselves. Nursing facilities, we set nursing facilities and assisted living facilities as safe havens in the case of a person being severely abused, and to take them out of that harmful environment and put them in a nursing home or assisted facility temporarily until an investigation can be conducted to ensure whether the senior is being safe. So we want to make sure the senior is safe and taken out of the environment, to make sure that in assisted living they have the 24-hour care and they'll get the medical attention if there's any issues of physical scarring, bruising, or anything like that can we can try to help the senior. Once a psychological evaluation is done, what could happen is that if a person is deemed that incapacitated as far as managing their finances, managing well, adult living skills or individual adult living skills, that person proves that they do not have the capacity to complete these tasks. What happens is that a guardian comes into play, and a person like a social worker can advocate for a person to get a guardian if there's nobody, no family or anybody that can help them to manage their finances. But also, in part of guardianship court, which I have been to several times, and I have gotten guardians for majority of all of my consumers. What happened was that after my investigation has concluded there was substantiated abuse and neglect, and the person is proved that they're incapacitated as far as finances and well-being, we will petition orphans court to get a guardian. So during that time, we will try to locate any immediate family members or anybody that has the elder's best interest at heart, and whether they're able to take on that responsibility to be the guardian of the elder. A judge will have to make that final decision if the person needs a guardian, and a judge can delegate who the guardian will be to ensure that their finances and well-being is taken care of. We also discussed if there's physical abuse in the home, we can also, the intervention of protection from abuse orders and stay away orders to protect the individual in their community and in their homes, to ensure that abuse is no longer happening in the home. So what will happen is that we will, as a social worker, we will advocate with the consumer, assess them, and get them to domestic court, family court, to talk to someone and file the necessary papers, as well as get a police report to get them to file for a PFA, which is called a protection from abuse order, and that will protect the person, get them out their home, and remove the abuse from their home.
So we wanted to move forward in talking about how it should impact social workers, the legal system, and society in itself. How should elder abuse and late adulthood affect us? So as a social worker, we decided to look at the code of ethics and the actual variables that we should be practicing, that we should be implementing. So we decided to look at a few specifics. So the code of ethics, we wanted to talk about the social work's responsibility to our clients. And the first one that we decided to look at was 1.01, which is the commitment to clients. As Natalia mentioned earlier, we as social workers are mandatory reporters. So the social worker's primary responsibility in this specific field and workforce is to promote the well-being of clients. In general, clients' interests are primary, so we should be looking at the well-being and the improvement and the interests of elders and what specifically they're going through. But however, social workers' responsibility to the larger society or even specific legal obligations may on limited occasions supersede the loyalty owed clients, and clients should be so advised. So some of the examples mentioned was that social worker is required by law to report that a client has abused a child or has threatened to harm self or others. So when we look at it from an elder abuse perspective, we as social workers, if we come or in interaction with an elderly person, and we see the signs and the symptoms of elder abuse in some kind of way, then we should be able to, as mandatory reporters, and with their specific interests in mind, be able to take action and to move forward in such a way. We should be able to move forward where we are trying to make and create change. Another one that we talked about was 1.02, which is self-determination. It is their personal choice. As social workers, we need to respect and promote the rights of clients to self-determination and assist clients in their efforts to identify and clarify their goals. There may be a limit to clients' right to self-determination when, in the social worker's professional judgment, clients' actions or potential actions pose a serious, foreseeable, and imminent risk to themselves or others. So because we are choosing to respect the individuals that we are working with, we do have to respect them in a way where they are choosing to continue living in this environment. They may be well aware that they are victim of abuse, but become so comfortable in that environment and choose to stay. Us as social workers, we need to respect that, but also bring an outside perspective on the actual items that they are going through, that they are either being neglected, where there is emotional abuse, where they are being threatened, where there's physical abuse, something. If they're going through some kind of abuse, we need to make aware of it, but also remember that it is their personal choice. They are individuals of society, and they are completely well determined and available to practice self-determination.
Another aspect within an NSAW Code of Ethics, which is important to in respect to elders and elder abuse, is informed consent, which is the instances when clients are receiving services and voluntarily, social workers should provide information about the nature and extent of services and about the extent of clients' rights to refuse services. So we have to make them aware when we do informed consents that this could be in the benefit of the benefit of them, to ensure that they're no longer at risk. And also if there's a need for involuntarily helping them, which is like something like when I talked about the guardianship, they may not, because of their incapacities, they don't understand that they can't manage their own finances, they can't manage their own well-being. So such things like involuntarily advocating for them, for a guardian, to ensure that their assets are safe and ensure that they're going to have someone there to protect them. And also we have to respect their right to refuse. So in our informed consent, most of our informed consent, our traditional informed consents, lets us, the consumer, be aware of the risk. And if they do have a right to refuse our services. They may not want to have us to be involved in their lives, and don't want us to advocate for them. So they do have the right to refuse services, but if it's not putting them at severe risk. Social workers should provide services to clients only in the context of the professional relationship. So if I'm a protective service worker, all of my services have to be encompassed with everything that I'm doing to help them to get out of risk. When appropriate, a valid, informed consent is social should use clear and understandable language to inform clients of the purpose of the services and other variables in connection to the services being provided.
Another one that we decided to look at was 1.07, which talks about privacy and confidentiality. We are to respect clients' rights to their privacy. Social workers should not solicit private information from clients unless it is essential to providing services or conducting evaluation or research. In regards to this, privacy and confidentiality is important because, as Natalia mentioned earlier, it is about a relationship-based practice. They are trusting us that we are going to work and move forward in a way that is beneficial to them. So if they are going through some kind of abuse, any type of abuse, we need to be more proactive in taking that specific detail and not just trying what is going on for gossip. We need to be aware of what we are hearing, the questions that we're asking, because we need to keep their information private. We need to not betray them. We need to continue being loyal. And every piece of information that we are hearing from them or even seeing has to be kept confidential. Both Natalia and I work in a medical area healthcare system with multiple departments and so forth, multiple different ages, departments, units, etc. With that, we are supposed to practice HIPAA. So that connects with privacy and confidentiality. We need to keep all private and personal information private for their specific sake and growth.
Another important NSAW law for Code of Ethics is 1.14, which is clients who lack decision-making capacity. When social workers act on behalf of clients who to make informed decisions, social workers should take reasonable steps to safeguard their interests, rights, and the rights of the consumer. So, for example, that would be ensuring the safety of the consumer to a person who does not have capacity. If we feel as though that they're living somewhere that's impacting their health, where there's no lights and there's no utilities and there's no heat, that can impact a senior and could cause further medical complications. So you want to ensure their safety. So like I said before, like taking them to a nursing home, a temporary nursing home or hospital, a safe place for them to go so they can be able to have their needs met, even though they may not have the decision-making capacity. We want to try to reduce and diminish the abuse with elders and try to educate them, even though they may not have the capacity, but you can be able to work with them and have, use understandable and empathetic wording for them to understand that you're there to help them, as well as get them to understand how abuse occurs, how to avoid abuse, and how to, who they can turn to if they are being abused.
So we talked about how elders should affect and impact social workers, but how should it impact the legal system? So as we were researching, we found the Older American Act, the OA, when President was in charge in 1965. And the definition that they gave us, it is to provide services for those who are unemployed for themselves. It is to improve the well-being of older through this piece of legislation. There are 7 different titles to the specific act, and Title I is the Declaration of Objectives and Definitions. So it is the achievement of adequate income during retirement, good physical and mental health. It is access to affordable housing and other services, employment opportunities, protection from elder abuse and neglect. So this specific area, it's making sure that as elders are growing in age, that they have the services that they need, the resources and etc. to provide for themselves or even within a dependent caregiver.
The second, Title II, encompasses administration of aging, and that is to state to administer funds, grants to social service agencies for older adults, provide consultation and guidance in communities, and etc. Ideas, trying to think of ideas and theories that can help to develop policies and services to ensure the well-being of seniors. Title III includes for so that means responsibilities of states to administer and manage local social service agencies, programs such as transportation, in-home services, legal services, and senior centers.
Title IV is activities for health, independence, and longevity. It administers grants to social services agencies and other organizations in order to conduct research and develop necessary programs for adults. Title V is Community Service Senior Opportunities Act, where they are promoting the need and the necessity of employment opportunities for those who are unemployed or are currently participating in low-income jobs.
Title VI is grants for Native Americans, and that states advocates for culturally competent and supportive services, including nutrition for Indians, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiians. Title VII includes vulnerable elder rights protections, establishing protective service programs in order to prevent elder abuse, neglect, for elders.
About how it impacts social workers, how it impacts the legal system, but we wanted to make it a more personable aspect and talk about how it should impact society, so us. So we decided that as resources, it should be able to educate individuals about elder abuse. How would we go about that? We decided that it would be beneficial to hold seminars and workshops in areas where there is an elderly population. There's a lot of areas that have assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and even retirement communities, 50 plus and so forth. Within these areas, it would be beneficial for the other neighbors, other community members to take part in these seminars and workshops to gain more knowledge about elder abuse and what it is. Another item that we thought would be beneficial was a caregiver support programs. When caregivers are entitled to care for elders, there's a lot of more responsibilities on their specific plate. So it can become even more stressful, more time consuming, where we feel like they are running thin in a way. So we decided that it would be beneficial where this specific support group would be a group of individuals that go and help and provide assistance. And it can be in any way possible where they are running errands, they are taking on certain responsibilities, tasks, even through conversation and communication, just taking some of the stress off of them. We figured that it was similar to respite care because we are alleviating built-up pressure on the caregiver by giving them a necessary break and a little bit of like a room to breathe. Another resource that we thought would be possible was a senior companions and peer support, pretty much, where a non-family member of similar age or even similar community would choose to spend time together with older adults. In this way, it would be are gaining a support system. They are creating relationships and friendships where they have the time to just spend with one another. They're engaging in conversation and so forth. So we felt like these three things within society would be beneficial to decrease elder abuse, to gain an outside and a better perspective on how to go about it and how to decrease it.
Finally, we wanted to talk about resources as social workers, not just for social workers, just pretty much for everybody to understand elder abuse and how to report it and how to get resources on elder abuse. So there's several types of ways and several different agencies on a federal, state, and local level that you can do or you can contact and be in contact with if issue with elder related issues. So one of the resources I wanted to talk about is something that we used a lot at PCA Protective Services was the Senior Law Center, which was a specialized team of legal consultants, attorneys, paralegals, and anybody that was there that had the legal licensing to provide consultation to seniors. So it's located in Title, which is located at 100 South Broad in Philadelphia, and their zip code is 19110. Their phone number is to contact them is 215-988-1242. Senior Law sources that provides, they provide legal sources free or low cost to seniors in the community, in the Philadelphia community, for individuals that are all 60. The type of resource that they have is they help with guardianship, power of attorney, wills, probate, estate recovery, any estate-related issues, violations of human rights, landlord-tenant concerns, and evictions. We wanted to provide information on the federal level, which would be the United States Administration on Aging. Their toll-free number is 1-800-677-1116. So you can contact them to get resources on aging and understand what it is on the federal level about elders, age, which includes abuse, the laws that they have, in fact, for the they put in place for the elders. On the state level, each state has their own area agency on aging, and their toll-free number is 877-222-3737. So with that, you can contact the area agencies and contact the AAA that's in your state, that you can let them know what type of resources you can get from them. If there's any elder abuse on the state level that you want to make someone aware of, they're there to help you and advocate for elders in your community or in your state. For the local resources, we wanted to kind of cater to all of our classmates. So with that, we wanted to cater California classmates and want to provide the 24-hour elder abuse hotline, which is 877-477-3646. For most of our Pennsylvania classmates, we want to provide the toll-free number of 1-800-490-8505. And for our Philadelphia classmates, which is like me and Shannon, we have PCA Protective Services. So Philadelphia Corporation for Aging has a department called Protective Services, and their phone number is 215-765-9000. And you can be linked through the hotline, and they can help you with a lot of resources. You don't have to just call them just to report elder abuse. You can call to get an assessment for in-home services like Meals on Wheels, in-home care. You can even use it for the heater hotline with those times when the heat gets really bad, and they will have a coordinator that will go out, provide a fan. And at times where in the cold weather, we have heaters for our seniors that are in need and cannot get access to the market to buy a heater for themselves. So we have free heaters to provide to our seniors to help them out during those needs. For our Delaware classmates, we have toll-free number for the elder abuse hotline, and that's 1-800-223-9074. For our New Jersey classmates and also our future social workers, the toll-free number is 1-800-752-6200. And finally, for our New York classmates and anybody that's in the area, even if you have family in the New York area, their toll-free number is 1-800-342-3009.
If we did miss any state or any area, and you are interested in finding out the number, please do contact us. We will be more than happy to let you know of what the hotline is, because if we are in an area where something like this is happening, it's better to reach out instead of remaining silent. That being said, thank you so much for watching our presentation. We hope that all of you learned a great deal about the reality of elder abuse and the specific variables that we did talk about, and have learned to apply interventions and be a source of support for the elders in your life, in your community, in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.